All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly timeless fable about the very real difference between just being smart and being truly wise. It's a classic story, but honestly, it perfectly captures a struggle we see all the time, right? Like in our own lives, our careers, everywhere. We place so much value on raw intelligence. But as this beautifully simple story shows, having a short mind doesn't automatically mean you actually know how to use it right. But before we get into the actual narrative, I want you to just kind of stop and think for a second. Have you ever tried to outsmart someone who was frankly much wiser than you? Think about how often we use our own cleverness to test others, maybe just to prove a point or feed our own egos, only to find ourselves walking right into a trap of our own making. It's totally human nature to want to show off how smart we are. But today, we're going to look at why having intelligence without that foundational wisdom is, well, a really dangerous game to play. So let's start with section 1, Knowledge Without True Wisdom, the story of Arivananda. Our story kicks off in this quiet little village, and we're introduced to a brilliant young guy named Arivanandan. He's the focal point here, and his character arc is incredibly revealing because, honestly, he represents a trap so many highly intelligent people fall into. Get this, his name literally translates to knowledge and joy, and he was gifted with a deeply analytical, incredibly sharp mind. But despite that beautiful name and his undeniable intellect, he just wasn't using his knowledge constructively. He wasn't bringing any joy at all. Instead of helping his community, he essentially used his brain as a weapon for mischief. He spent his days constantly trying to test, deceive, and just one-up the people around him. He was exceptionally smart, for sure, but he entirely lacked the maturity to use that intelligence for anything meaningful. Then, the whole dynamic in the village shifts. Enter Sadasavar, an elderly, highly respected sage. Naturally, the villagers just flock to him. They recognize his life experience, and they want his deep guidance and advice for their everyday struggles. Now, seeing all this attention and reverence being directed at the old man, Aravanandan's pride just flares right up. He decides he absolutely has to put the old man's wisdom to the ultimate test. He wants to publicly prove that his youthful cleverness is vastly superior to the old man's quiet wisdom. Which brings us to section 2, setting the impossible trap, the ultimate test. So this mischievous young guy decides to engineer a scenario where the sage simply cannot win. He doesn't want to just ask a hard question, He wants a completely rigged game to humiliate the respected elder. The source text paints this vividly tense picture for us. Arivanan then walks right up to the venerable Sadasuvar, right in front of all the villagers. His hands are firmly cupped together, clearly hiding something inside, and that something is a small, fragile, living bird. He's standing there, totally ready to spring his carefully laid intellectual trap. With this incredibly confident, mischievous grin, he looks the sage dead in the eye and asks one simple question. Is the bird in my hands alive or dead? This creates a moment of just intense suspense. Now, on the surface, it seems like a basic riddle, right? A simple 50-50 guess. But Arivandan knows exactly what he's doing, and the stakes are entirely in his favor. And here is where the trap snaps shut. It brilliantly illustrates his rigged game. If Sada Severe guesses alive, Iravanand then plans to just covertly squeeze his hands, crush the small bird, and reveal a dead animal. Boom, the sage is wrong. But if the sage guesses dead, Iravanand then will simply open his hands and let the bird fly away alive and well. Again, the sage is proven wrong. No matter what the old man says, Iravanand then has the physical power to ensure the answer is instantly false. It is literally the ultimate display of manipulation, just masquerading as a test of knowledge. Moving on to section 3, the master's perfect answer. Let's see how wisdom prevails over trickery. So, faced with this totally foolproof, no-win scenario, the entire village is just waiting with bated breath to see how the wise Sadasivar could possibly escape public humiliation. I mean, how do you answer a question when the person asking it completely controls the reality of the outcome? Well, the old man doesn't panic, he doesn't guess, he doesn't even get angry. Instead, with this perfectly calm smile, he shatters the trap entirely. He simply looks at him and says, "Whether it is alive or not is in your hands." Wow. It is incredibly powerful. Sadasivar completely bypasses the binary choice of the riddle. He just flat out refuses to play Arivanandan's rigged game. Instead, he delivers this profound truth that transcends the simple trick. He acknowledges exactly what the young man is doing, calling out his power over the situation without ever getting defensive or taking the bait. Let's dive into Section 4, the power of choice, the transformation of Arivanandan. That masterstroke of an answer instantly shocks Aryavanandan. It takes the wind completely out of his sails. By saying it is in your hands, the sage shifts the heavy burden of life, death, and morality right back onto the young man's own conscience, and it sparks a complete psychological shift. He started out by trying to cheat others, using his intellect purely to feed his own ego. But the sage's perfect, non-confrontational answer? It's a total wake-up call. He actually realizes the sheer emptiness and cruelty of his own trickery, and ultimately, he changes. He leaves those deceptive ways behind and finally begins to use his sharp intelligence for good in his village. That quiet wisdom of the old man successfully awakened the dormant wisdom inside the young man. So, breaking this down, the source material gives us 3 massive takeaways. First, our decisions are entirely in our own hands. That little bird in the story, it's a brilliant metaphor for our own potential and the impact of our actions. Second, just having knowledge isn't enough. We have to actively choose to use our knowledge for good rather than just being smart. And third, the absolute highest use of our mental energy is to improve ourselves instead of constantly testing, judging, or trying to one-up everybody else around us. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final provocative thought. What are you holding in your hands today? Seriously, take a look at your own life and your own skills. Are you using your intelligence and your daily choices to build traps for others just to prove you're the smartest person in the room? Or are you choosing to open your hands, act with genuine wisdom, and let your true potential fly? It's a heavy question, but just like the bird in the story, the answer is entirely